Hey, my friends, it's Dave Slomka, and welcome to a new episode of Dave's I Believe in You, where you can find expert guidance from the sources that I've been learning from and a community of people like yourself who want to grow and change. So let me be your encourager. With God, your life can be better. You can change. Your best days are still ahead of you. I believe in you. Please share this podcast with 3 friends who really want to grow and help them move forward in their lives and make a difference in our world. And if you're finding these podcasts helpful, then be sure to hit the like button or give me some stars or leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. And with that, let's get started. We're in a seasonal change where I live. Winter is ending, spring is starting, and it's a change that most people welcome. But what about other kinds of change? Do you like change? I've talked with so many people who would answer that question with a resounding no. But if we want to grow, to become the best version of ourselves, to become who God created us to be, then change is necessary. So what are we going to do? In this episode, we're going to hear from Patrick Lencioni and his team, and it's from their podcast, At the Table. Now, in episode 80, they talk about change and transition using the work of author Bill Bridges. What they believe is that we all like change. Instead, it's the transition that goes with the change that you and I don't like. So what if you could follow a process to help you change, to see you through and come out better on the other side? Well, that's today's podcast. Patrick Lencioni is one of the founders of the Table Group and is the pioneer of the organizational health movement. And he's the author of 11 books, amazing books, which have sold over 6 million copies and been translated into more than 30 languages. And the topic for the podcast that I picked for today is that change is easy, transition is hard. And Patrick has been using this material for 25 years with his family and his friends and his clients. So the idea that people don't like change, that they resist it, even if it's good for them, may seem to be true. But the reality is that people don't struggle with change, but it's the process of change, or what they call the transition. People like change. They want improvement in their lives or their business or their family, but what they don't like is transition, and it often keeps them paralyzed. For example, moving to a new place can sound great. It's the transition that we resist. And so often we look at life and think our decisions are going to determine success. And it's often not the decision that's bad, it's how you manage the transition that makes it successful or fail. It's not just about committing to the change, it's the interpersonal dynamics of making the change. And Patrick writes that nobody thinks we shouldn't deal with the emotional process of change, but often we ignore it because we think change is just an intellectual process. It's only a decision. The struggle with change and transition is true of both the good and bad experiences of life. The underlying truth is that both positive and negative transitions involve loss. Every transition involves some kind of loss. As strange as it may seem, both marriage and divorce involve the same amount of loss. Having a baby or losing a loved one, same amount of loss. Losing your job or getting a new job involves loss. But we congratulate people on the positive, and then we console people on the negatives. And that's why people go through so many positive things in life and wonder why they're so miserable and struggling. In his work, Bill Bridges catalogs these 7 different kinds of loss that people experience. And when training a group experiencing change, Patrick would ask people, what were you losing? And it's actually different for everyone, even if they were going through the same change. So here are Bill Bridges' 7 kinds of loss. The first one is loss of identity. It's like a woman getting married and changing her name, what she's had her whole life, or a job identity loss. The second is loss of turf. I had control of this space and now it's gone. And it could be your home or it could be your job responsibilities. The third is a loss of structure. You had things planned out for your life, and then you lose those plans, everything you had in place that you were in control of, which leads into fourth, which is loss of control. You used to get to make decisions for yourself. Now you're making decisions maybe as a couple. The fifth is loss of future. You thought your life was going in this direction. This was your desired future, and now that's gone. Or loss of attachments is number 6. Attachments to people you thought would always be around. Relationships you always thought you had, or social networks that suddenly you've lost. And then the 7th is loss of meaning or purpose. You thought your life would always be about this mission or these people. It's like empty nesters. My whole life was about my kids, and suddenly they're gone. Sometimes we go through change that involves actually multiple or even all 7 kinds of loss. And so what we need to do is identify the loss we're facing and then see what might be holding you back from the change or transition that it is you're trying to go through. Now, Patrick gave the example of having a child, a really good transition that also contains loss. What did you lose? In fact, it's all 7 kinds of loss. You lose your turf. Everything in your house becomes child-focused everywhere. You lose structure. Your schedule now revolves around the child. You lose control. You don't even get to choose when you sleep. You lose identity. We were a couple, or I now was an individual. Now I'm a parent. Now I'm a dad or a mom. You lose your future. What happens if your kid loves the violin? Now you're going to recitals and concerts, and the future you thought has changed. Number 6, you lose attachments. Your friendships change. Some people don't like kids, and so suddenly that all shifts. And then number 7, you lose meaning. Whatever you thought your life was about changes, and who you are, your purpose gets wrapped up in being a parent. Great things in life, marriage, babies, promotions, all involve loss. And in the podcast, they mentioned that some changes you choose and some happen to you. But either way, you can get stuck if you don't have a process to go through it. So sometimes we get bitter and resentful of the change, especially if we didn't choose the change. And then we get stuck. We start blaming people, we blame circumstances, and then we never move forward in life. Even if you didn't choose the change, you still get to choose what you will do about it. You can manage your peace if you embrace your choice in responding. Patrick references Viktor Frankl in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, that if you believe you can choose how to respond, then you can maintain your peace, even in awful circumstances. Now, Bill Bridges teaches that we have 4 choices in how we respond to change. Like losing a job. You can 1, restore and try to get it back. 2, you can replace and try to get a new one, perhaps even the same job somewhere else. 3, you can redesign. You can change the job or maybe build an outside work friendship if you've lost that relationship. Or number 4, you can relinquish. Give it up. Just let it go. If we don't choose, we become stuck and we don't move forward. We become a victim. If you constantly blame people or circumstances, you're always trying to show people how hard things are for you and how unfair they've been, then you're seeing yourself as a victim and you're stuck. Don't see yourself as a victim. Now, Patrick contrasts a woman that he met with his wife, and the woman's husband lost his job in a bad way. And he became bitter, and he would call his old coworkers and complain all the time. He got stuck in bitterness, and he ended up moving from temp job to temp job. And he got stuck in that pattern for 12 years. Now, Patrick's wife also lost her job unfairly. But she thought through her choices, and she decided instead that she would redesign her work. And she started her own business and went on to thrive. Same circumstances, different responses. You know, there is so much change and transition happening right now that has been forced on us. And we have to accept it, choose our response, and then work through the losses. Now, Patrick mentioned that maybe you're stuck and haven't made the choice of what your response is going to be yet, but you can choose. He also encourages us to have faith in God to bring us through. And I would echo that. So how do I deal with all this change or transition? Here's the process. 1, catalog. What are you losing in this change? Which of those 7 losses? Number 2, choose how you're going to respond. Which of the 4 response choices are you going to take on for yourself? But then number 3 is find a way to ceremonialize the ending. And he said, this is really important. You need to mark or initialize the end. You have to finalize it in some way. And they mentioned the idea that if you skip a wedding or a funeral, then you often have a harder time moving forward. We need ceremony. So do something to mark the moment. If you leave a job, celebrate the change. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but it creates a visual demarcation of a change. Now, for myself, after listening to the podcast again, I was struck by all the changes that I've been facing over the past several months. And most of them have not been my choice. But I really love the reminder that I get to choose how I will respond. And I'm going to take the time to catalog those losses, choose my response, and then ceremonialize the ending, something that I really want to embrace and learn more how to do. And I hope that you'll do the same so that you don't get stuck in this process of change. Next episode, we're going to hear part 2 from At the Table podcast, talking about the next part of the change process. Once you've had the ceremony and said goodbye to the past, then you enter into what they call the hardest and most productive, fearful and most innovative, growth-oriented, and scariest part of all. It's called the neutral zone. If you want more, including the links and notes, then those will be in the notes underneath on YouTube or in the podcast. You can also drop by daveslomka.com and subscribe there, and I can send you the more complete notes. Until then, make sure to check back at daveslomka.com and share this episode with a few people, because there are people in your life who struggle like you struggle, and they want to make a change in their lives, and they want to make a difference in our world. And so share the podcast with them. Please leave a comment or review and share what you thought. It is a big help to me. And then let's share the encouragement around. Let's show others that we believe in them too. Every day is a good day to grow and change. I believe in you. With God in your life, anything is possible. So go out there and make that change.